I'm Amy Christensen with the Independence Heritage Museum. Join me as we learn from Victor Ochoa, an Independence resident and graduate student, as we learn about his research on ethnic Mexican labor and placemaking in Independence. Independence is a place where history echoes and the meeting of cultures creates a tapestry of stories. Today we'll hear the words of a neighbor and Chicano and graduate student who has focused his research on the migration of ethnic Mexicans to Independence. He'll explain the threads of identity and culture that they weave into the unfolding tapestry of our community. Victor, thank you for inviting me into your home today. I really appreciate it. Could you really briefly just kind of introduce your background and who you are?
Oh yeah, my name is Victor Daniel Ochoa. I am a second generation here in Independence, born and raised, and I am a second year in my master's program over at the University of Oregon in the Department of History.
Can you define for me what your master's thesis project is? Get into the details of, if you had to title it. Let's get into what you're saying.
Oh yeah, so right now the title of my thesis is Somos de Aquí y de Allá, that we are here and from there. And the little, semicolon is the Mexicalization of Independence, 1950 to about 2000. And it really touches on the idea of placemaking, so how folks make a unfamiliar place familiar. And kind of how, and the way I'm kind of reframing it, is creating a migrant placemaking where we focus on how they bring their lived experiences from their homelands and bring it towards other foreign, unknown, perhaps exclusive places where they're able to manipulate and be able to familiarize the space within their own lived experiences. And more so how they also in time that they bring a place together, but also how at the time how citizenship was really defined, and in ways that it was out of bureaucracy, out of regular migration papers or anything else, and where they actually took a stake in the community and wanted to create something that they wanted genuinely for their children. So just even the simple idea of wanting to move to a better place for better opportunities for their kids, for their descendants, is a dramatic and powerful aspect of the migrant experience, and so that's kind of what I'm capturing.
I know the scope of your specific research project is about the 1950s through 2000, but could you briefly overview what it was like for ethnic Mexicans in Independence prior to 1950?
It wasn't up until about 1920 where I found a newspaper article in the Polk County Post, June 4th, 1920, where they mentioned a group of 20 Mexicanos, laborers who were working on the Southern Pacific, I think a rail line out here. And there was actually a big old quotation that I put in my thesis, which I really love, where it's their presence was a race problem. And so those 20 Mexicanos were being housed at something called the McHenry Shack, actually over here up on the corner of 4th and G Street. And there were a couple of residents in Independence that were very adamant about their presence, stating that it would induce some sort of intrusion of foreigners into Independence, but as well as the idea at the time that a lot of Mexicanos were dirty or that were disease-ridden, which those ideas a lot came from the Southwest and Texas and the borderlands. And in the census records, you'll see that about before the 20th century, a lot of folks from Texas and California, and you see some folks down there that migrated up to Independence to work the hop fields. And so those ideas are taught. So they brought them with them as they came up to Independence and settled out here. And going back to the story, those folks petitioned the city council to pretty much kick them out of the house to oppose their housing. It was successful, and as far as I know, I don't know what happened to them. I don't know if they came back. I don't know if they stayed. I don't know what happened, but the idea is that for us at the time, about the 1910s, during when a lot of Mexicans were coming in from the Mexican Revolution 1910, a lot of them were coming in saturating the Southwest, and so a lot of railroaders at the time, a lot of railroad companies, employers would hire them because a lot of them accepted lower pay, for horrid work conditions that a lot of other folks weren't able to bend to when it comes to the employers.
And so now as we enter the discussion of your specific research, we're not talking about immigrants, we're talking about migrants who are Mexican Americans. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, more Mexican Americans were arriving about before 1970, but after about 1970, maybe about the mid 1960s, more immigrants from Mexico were coming in. My grandfather actually arrived to Independence about in like 1970, 1971, with a cousin of his, and some other folks arrived during that time too. And it was interesting because when I asked my grandfather, of course, kind of, what was Independence like? He's like, I don't know anybody. It's just me and my cousin. We slept in our car when we went and worked out in the fields. When we go work the Christmas trees down in Corvallis. He's like, we didn't really know anybody, and most of the contractors kind of were, out and about. There wasn't really kind of like a bulletin of like where to get hired. And so you'd have to hear from word of mouth, and so that's kind of where he found a lot of work in the 1960s when this community of Mexican Americans, more specifically Tejano, so Mexican American folks that are from Texas, really solidified their community. One example is the bailes parejas, so the dances with partners. This was assembled by a Mexican American social club that was kind of brought out from the Migrant Valley League, which was an organization that helped a lot of migrant folks here in the Willamette Valley. My great grandfather was a part of that club, and my great uncle was as well, and some other folks. And they organized these dances out in Rick Reel. And what's even funny too at the time was that these bailes, these dances, were actually happening in the camps. Even just on the weekends or in the evenings on the weekdays, that folks would bring their accordions or guitars, what have you, and just play, and they would dance. And when they didn't have that, they would bring phonographs and records and play those. And so it was really cool to see those bailes kind of really seem to kind of like spread out from the camps, which is something that really kind of emphasizes, that we are here to stay, but also that we are here more than just to be laborers. They'd be picking during the day, and they have curlers in their hair to get ready for the bailes. Folks would make food to go over to sell, and you have to get tickets, obviously, to bring a partner. And it was a really big event. I know that one of the folks I interviewed, she was really describing it as like the place to be. I mean, for me, I absolutely enjoy it because I love me a good dance.
Maybe you need to bring them back.
I know. Well, that's what I was thinking too. And one of the more heartfelt things, and kind of wrapping this, like my graduate research and everything, was I'm getting married this summer, and we're actually getting married at Green Villa, the very first place that my great-grandparents came to start their lives in Independence, and a place where I get to start a new chapter of mine with my lovely fiance. And it's something that is very, it's very crazy. And it's something for me that cements a very historic community here that a lot of folks don't know, and a lot of folks that know, but there wasn't a platform for them to share this. And I do hope that a lot of folks within those first Mexicano families, those first Tejano families, and folks that have been here before are able to share those stories moving forward. Hopefully, I'll get more folks to talk to as my research goes on.
Thank you so much for sharing it with us. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you again.